So we're back with Art of Fantasy mainly. Oh, it's well, it's not something you can see, but I'm happy. I'm guessing it just must not have been working because the bit rate that Prism would show, it would always be a solid 6,000. But there are several times where I had a poor connection and just wasn't saying anything. But today it was showing different numbers, although it's just quickly gone to 6K and it's staying there now. So maybe I spoke too soon, but we'll see. So we're starting off with which is funny because that these came before the game shipped, but so the dice for draw still. I wasn't too sure, and I didn't want to spend that much since I'm not sure if I'll even really be playing it. So I only bought the two that were themed around classes that I was interested in. Well, made it look like you can just... Oh, there it goes. So it looks like, I'm assuming if you scan the QR code, it takes you to rules, maybe? Library. I'm not that kind of mage. Not while Ajax is still alive. But yeah, and so comes with 2d10s and a d6, which are a little bit harder than I was anticipating on getting out. It's pretty snug. Okay, that is interesting. I wasn't expecting. So I was showing my brother this based on the image on the back of the box. He was rather confused that they were 2d10s. But these have 1 to 10 on them twice. So I guess when they were saying they don't, which I mean, it's technically true, but I guess they did end up making some unique dice after all. So this is the Shadows themed one. Yep, that one came out a little bit easier. Wasn't even there. Oh, well, I guess that was a unique problem to that other box. I do like these ones a little bit better. This is kind of more what I was thinking they'd look like. Yeah, of the two, I'm definitely happier with this one. Um, and I think overall I'm happy with having gotten them, even though I'm unsure if they'll ever actually see the light of day again. So we've got the March Vicky Sigh, which I guess it came out with a bonus sticker as well, which I was not realizing. Which again, I guess I'd say it's another departure from her usual, well, at least her usual for Patreon style. She does do this sort of thing, I think on her store more, but I don't usually tend to get those kind of items. But yeah, it's definitely a departure like we saw last month from kind of the usual style, but I really do enjoy these still. So I think this is our fifth session. Well, I don't remember these, so I think this is where we left off. Those few seconds upon waking, that disorienting feeling in which reality and fantasy become one. When all of the surreal imagery of the dream, strange sequences of ideas blurring together and lingering in your consciousness, it just feels so incredibly real. Dreams are rigged that way, and though a universal phenomenon, they're intensely personal and a confounding combination of hard to remember, difficult to forget, and hopelessly complicated to describe. How do you talk about those moments? How do you depict the unreal and utterly indescribable? And do people really even want to hear it or see it? Many folk are of the belief that there is nothing more tedious than to suffer through the telling of someone else's dreams. And as dreams are really just a random flotsam without narratives or structure that we can barely articulate in any meaningful way, can we really blame them? Oh no, I think she should speak for herself there. I have very, at least, the ones I remember, they're very cinematic a lot of the time. Time and again, artists and writers have looked into the recesses of the unconscious mind for inspiration and found myriad ways to record the mysteries of these ephemeral fantasies and inner visions. Yeah, just a second. Forgot I
like flip flops.
Okay, there. With this new thing, I realized that after the first time I was using it that so I guess like just I'm not sure how I didn't notice it, that it was capturing the apparatus there. So now I'm always paranoid that
Oh my gosh, there's so many things to talk about.
it's there again.
Great, how's swimming? Didn't look over with you.
Through their artful interpretations of dream worlds and illusory realms, we begin to see these reveries as anything but dull, rather a dazzling source of visual brilliance through which our walking world is seen anew. Dreams are a common theme in art history, mysterious, elusive. These phantom figments and filaments work at prickling our curiosity, tickling our fancies, disturbing and fascinating us all at once. For the Romantics, dreaming was not only an escape but also a mystical revelation of what was deep in one's soul. Dreaming was at the heart of the 19th century symbolist aesthetic, as evidenced in the works of artist, poet, and king of dreams Odilon Redon, considered by many to be the figurehead of symbolism and surrealists. Each painting from the liminal space of the seen and the invisible, reveling in the nonsensical and eerie resonances found there. The boundless capacity shared by the dream and the artistic imagination can also be found in the much gazed upon illustrations of our favorite stories, intensely enjoyed as children and again while finding our way towards adulthood. One of the earliest newspaper comic strips recounts Little Nemo's adventures in Slumberland. Gothic fantasist Edgar Allan Poe, whose tales were often eerily illustrated by Harry Clarke, enigmatically asks, "Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream?" Many of Lovecraft's stories were directly inspired by his own personal dreams and nightmares. Today, artists who grew up on a steady diet of such visual dream-fueled dazzle and confound us with explorations of their own nocturnal journeys and visions. Investigating the twists and delights of midnight fear and desire in a vast array of mediums, paintings, videos, sculptures, costumes, installations. These artistic reveries giving form to the fantastic can be seen as recordings of a personal nature, intimate ephemeral feelings and internal fantasies, or perhaps speak to something much grander, plumbing the depths of the unconscious mind to connect the unseen forces of the universe. The psychological experience of the self in connection with the world around us is, of course, common to artists of every era and every culture. And the rest of us too, even if we can't draw a stick figure to illustrate it, we still dream. We understand this urge and connect with it as well. By the time we've lived out our lives, we'll have experienced a lot of dreamy art, whether culled entirely from the sleeping brain of an artist or via dreamtastic books and films, and spend an estimated 50,000 hours actually dreaming in our beds. That is a goodly amount of time hanging out with the nighttime shades and shadows, those troubling, vexing, fascinating companions of the dark. And even if we're not eager to hear our siblings' boring mumbles about whatever nocturnal humdrum thing happened to them last night, we certainly remain captivated by the dreams, those exaltations of the unbridled imagination, the fantastical and nightmarish mysteries, and masterpieces wrought on canvas, page, and screen by our favorite artists.
I am so excited for tomorrow. I got clearance from work. I will be there. And I am so excited. No, Mark.
Nicknamed Fairy Fitzgerald, John Anster Christian Fitzgerald was a Victorian-era fairy painter and portrait artist. In moods both sinister and mischievous, featuring birds and other tiny creatures, as well as a fabulous array of fairy folk, these works have a hallucinatory atmosphere, as if they are the illusion of drug-induced dreams. His work has often been compared to the hallucinatory weirdness of Bosch and Bruegel the Elder. When pictured outside the enchanted home of their woods, does it appear as if these diminutive entities are collectively composing The young person's nocturnal reveries are the fairies but a fantastical detail of the dream. Sir Edward Coley Burne-Jones was a painter associated with the later phase of the pre-Raphaelite movement. Typical of this artist's work, and in general that of the pre-Raphaelite artists, the dream of Sir Lancelot is medievally inspired, with its source being found in the Arthurian legend. On the quest of Lancelot, one of the knights of the Round Table encounters the Holy Grail in a half-awake and half-dream state. He tries to lift it but cannot. His failure, he realizes, is because his heart is not pure. The knight is portrayed asleep against the head of a well. His helmet sits by his side, while his sword rests in his hand and his shield hangs from a withered tree.
If we break it up, the stuff that makes your room dirty, and so like on Monday you pick up your clothes, on Tuesday you clean your vanity, on Wednesday you pick up like any toys or stuff like that.
Fiction writer H.P. Lovecraft's most enduring monster of oppressive horror, Cthulhu, despite being too abstract to be accurately described by human perception, as well as possibly the sanity destroyer of anyone who even catches a glimpse of the ancient creature, sure shows up in a lot of our fantasy art. A godlike, inconceivable cosmic entity with a vaguely anthropoid outline, an octopus-like head, a pair of rudimentary wings, and a mass of feelers surrounding his supposed mouth. While the sum of his parts sounds like it adds up to something that will render you a senseless, gibbering mess, artistically, how could a creator let slip the challenge to interpret Cthulhu in their medium of choice in their own unique style? The likeness of the deity priest by contemporary artist Bram Sells casts a vast mountainous shadow over a small boat that flounders in its wake. The sense of scale alone here is unnerving, especially when you realize the top of Cthulhu's head is obscured by the clouds. By the time one has finished taking in the entirety of the canvas, one has the doomed and desperate sense that it's already too late for them. I think the last time we had a painting like this, it turned out all right, but I am kind of worried about how much this one is showing up on the right. It's got a lot of details in the shadows. Calling himself a mechanic who paints, Maxfield Parrish claimed not to understand his own popularity, and once remarked, "I am hopelessly commonplace. I don't know what people see in me." Nevertheless, Parrish's paintings of beautiful surroundings and delightful characters charmed the public during America's golden age of illustration, and have been used for book illustrations, large murals, magazine covers. Amongst the artist's idyllic paintings of fairy tales and nursery rhymes, this nocturnal sense of grim goblins haunting a child's bedtime seems a little dire. Humans have been creating art from the shifting ciphers of their slumbering midnight riddles since the dawn of time. I wonder what nightmare of Parrish's might have inspired this work. Carl Grauer is a contemporary artist who primarily works in oil, painting, and contemporary representational portraits, and at times realistic paintings. Having grown up in rural Kansas, the artist notes that he has always had a fascination with The Wizard of Oz and Judy Garland. Now as a gay man, the attachment is only enhanced by her historical and cultural influence as a gay icon. In the movie, Dorothy gets knocked out by a flying window during the cyclone scene. She eventually lands in Oz, but by the movie's end, she wakes up in her bed with her family surrounding her and reassuring the viewer that the whole ordeal was simply a dream. In Baum's original novel, however, there is no dream. In this dreamlike surrealistic triptych, Grauer, using influences from 15th century religious art and other mythological references, explores the subject matter of The Wizard of Oz and its context within celebrity worship.
So one of
Lewis Carroll's dreamy tale of a girl named Alice who falls down a rabbit hole into a fantasy world populated by surreal and anthropomorphic creatures showed us a world askew with curiousness and confusion. Because Carroll structured the story in the form of a dream, he was empowered to make fun of the myriad Victorian didactic maxims in children's literature of the day, with all manner of nonsense and parody peppered throughout. Accompanied by a set of captivating Charles Robinson illustrations, it was a huge commercial success. From that time on, Robinson continued to create visuals for fairy tales and children's books, with his characteristic style of subtle line and delicate watercolors, still delighting generations, both young and old, over a century later. Based on a scene from William Shakespeare's comedy A Midsummer's Night Dream, Hermia and Lysander is a watercolor painting created in 1870 by John Symonds. The couple are tired and disoriented, appearing unaware of the throng of animals and fairies around them. Lysander is seated and touching Hermia's fingers with one hand, while indicating the soft forest moss with his other. It is the point in the tale of A Midsummer Night's Dream when he invites her to rest, saying, "One turf shall serve as pillow for us both. One heart, one bed, two bosoms, and one troth." Paintings of fairies had a resurgence of popularity in the 19th century, with many based on scenes from A Midsummer's Night Dream, and Symonds produced several luminous pieces in this genre. J.J. Granville, born Jean Ignace Isidore Girard, was a caricaturist, later recognized as a grandfather of surrealism. From Gustave Doré to the Walt Disney Studios, his anthropomorphic cartoons have numerous successors. In Second Dream, A Promenade Through the Sky, there is a sort of nonsensical, ruminative, but somewhat reasonable progression of the imagery from one object to the next, transfiguring and morphing as if in a dream, in this visual stream of consciousness where one reverie dissolves into another. A mushroom becomes a parasol, which in turn becomes an owl, until it ultimately becomes a horse-drawn chariot, sprinkling the night with stars. German-Swiss painter and printmaker Carla Schwab was an artist of mysticism and esoteric strangeness. Generally considered a symbolist, although some of his style characteristics, such as the floral motifs and rich ornamentation, have much in common with Art Nouveau. His works were largely mythical or allegorical, and more often than not steeped in arcane despair. Schwab was in high demand as an illustrator for books, and as it happened, French novelist of the time, Émile Zola, encouraged publishers to partner his novels with etchings and lithographs by the best illustrators. This mysterious emotive work is for Zola's Le Rêve, a fairy tale of sorts that reveals the story of a strange young orphan who grows up enthralled by the tales of the saints and whose dream is to marry a rich and handsome young prince. Founding member of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, painter and poet Dante Gabriel Rossetti created a distinctive body of work inspired by a romanticized version of the medieval past and mythic beings of classical antiquity. Portraits characterized by languid melancholy and luminous luxuriant colors. The Daydream depicts a subject attired in lustrous green silk, Jane Morris, with whom the artist was having a secret affair. In this shaded embrace of a sycamore tree, a small stem of honeysuckle is in her hand. Enclosed in her lush bower, she is lost in reverie, her gaze turned inward to something that only she can see. In this particular nightmare, part of Redon's noir series, rendered in the velvety black of charcoal and chalk, we are confronted with the vague vision of a disturbingly unreal scenario. A lone figure, in either daydream or hallucination, looks aside, distressed, as two disembodied faces dance before him. Are these haunting visages masks of himself he has discarded, pieces of former selves or past lives? Some nightmares are simply too personal to parse. The impressionistic works of Polish painter and illustrator Władysław Podansky did not exactly wow contemporary critics when presented to the Warsaw public in the autumn of 1890. So what did the young artist do? He drastically transformed his art, turning to the dark side of symbolism to paint mysterious compositions in gloomy, tenebrous shades. In the delirium of Podansky's nightmarish frenzy of exaltations, or frenzy of dreams, we thrill at a chaotic scene in which a nude woman sits aside a demonic steed. She appears rapturous. The beast seems agitated. The horse's mane and rider's tresses tangle in a maddening mass of shadowy vapors, which surround the subject and look to drift right of canvas. An atmosphere of scandal surrounded the painting's exhibition, virtually ensuing its success, and yet a buyer could not be found. And I guess I sort of got used to the format of the book, but really I find it really annoying, at least based off of the flows of the other two, that for these sections for the opposite layout, they have it set to the furthest away from where your eye would naturally wander to. Fantasy and horror illustrator of fierce feral beasts, the secrets and darkness of nature, and at least 100 mermaids, Jana Heisedorf knows a thing or two about traversing the surreal world of dreams. But though the imaginative realms of her work are often inspired by the mystery and unpredictability of wild things in the natural world, it's not all monstrous fairy tales and fantastical nightmares. Sometimes an artist dreams the peaceful romance of soft midnight magic and swanky castles in the clouds too. Was there ever a more gorgeously gruesome artistic pairing than that of the fantastically morbid tales of mystery and imagination penned by Poe, alongside the feverish writhing decadence of the illustrations by Harry Clarke? Clarke's eerie, intricate imagery swirled throughout the stories of some of history's greatest fantasy writers, visions fueled by his own appetite for the weird and wondrous, drawn from fable, folklore, and literature. His fascination with the terrors of damnation, in the words of his concerned family, produced page after page of the provocative nightmares which still haunt us today. Oh, there is such a volatile beauty and fraught magic in the art of creation, is there not? In never knowing for certain if your hand is capable of properly conjuring forth and doing justice to all the wonders and fantasies that you've dreamed up in your mind. What strange and heady power it is to plunge ahead into that uncertainty, regardless, to trust that those figments and fancies will find a way to the canvas or the page. In contemporary painter Scott Burdick's lush, moody vision, The Hand of Creation, We observe the fabulously sanguine energies of that decisive moment when an artist takes that leap and begins to coax that dreams forth into reality. Known for her layered, lyrical, multidisciplinary work that explores embodiment, female identity, and the natural world, artist Kiki Smith's artistic pursuits evolve and unfold like mythical cabinet of curiosities, overflowing with darksome fairy tales in a body of work that includes sculpture, printmaking, photography, drawing, and textile. Finding inspiration in the pageantry and spectacle of 1920s Hollywood and the Middle Ages, the tapestry blooms with beguiling textures, celestial elements, and cosmic symbology. And Smith's fantastically dreamy vision of a harmonious universe, spirit of both the sacred and sophisticated, infuses a creation which combines the construction of a massive collage, converted to digital weave file, and completed with the technomagic of computerized looms. Baku, our supernatural beings, are said to devour nightmares. Legend has it, when children wake shivering from a nightmare, they know what to do. Whisper 3 times, Baku-san, can meet my dream. If the child's request is granted, the monstrous Baku will come into the room and suck the bad dream away. Summoning a Baku must be done sparingly, however, because if it remains hungry after ending a single nightmare, it may also devour their hopes and ambitions as well, leaving them an empty life. Yuko Shimizu's eerie Baku, despite its monstrous appearance, appears to voraciously hoover up those bad dreams, true to form as a revered and powerful force of good, and as a holy protector of mankind. So that'll bring us to the end for today. And it looks like next time we'll be going through a section that could have equally been at home in her book on occultic art. And that should most likely be tomorrow.